6 o'clock upon us. We are going to go ahead and begin our regularly scheduled city council meeting for the evening of Tuesday, April 4th. I'd like to welcome everyone out this evening. Thank you for coming out and joining us. So we will begin this evening with an invocation offered by Pastor Mike Holloman of the United Methodist Church. If you would all please stand for that and then remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I'd just like to make a quick comment that our church has been in ministry and service in the community for 138 years, so it's a pleasure to be here tonight. And let us pray. Gracious God, known by many names and beyond all names, Spirit of life, Spirit of love, Spirit of community, we ask your blessings upon the people who have been called to lead our Caldwell community in which we live, work, and play. Help our mayor and council as leaders to not only ask, how do we fix, but how do we need to learn? How might we need to change? How do we need to listen? Remember them, because we all forget from time to time, especially in this noisy political climate that we're in, that they are not only leaders but also servants. That is your responsibility and ours to serve the common good for all. Remember that no matter where we live, everyone, gay, straight, transgendered, black and white, Hispanic, Asian, Muslim, Christian, Jew, Hindu, or atheist, is our neighbor, our siblings, and throughout the ages, prophets have called the leaders and our people to respect and protect the least of those among us, our children, the elderly, the poor, those who are hungry, and those who have no homes, those who are ill in body and mind or spirit, the stranger and the immigrant in our midst, those who live on these margins, those who are alone, and those who are forgotten. Grant our mayor, the council, and us the wisdom and courage to know and to do what is right and good and true. May they and we speak out when it is time to speak and listen, and patiently, receptively when it's time to listen. May they and we also be guided by the spirit of community, by the spirit of justice, grace, empathy, and the spirit of love. We pray in the name of all that we hold sacred and holy. We do this in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you so very much, Pastor Holloman, for that prayer. We really appreciate you being here this evening and starting us off with that. Madam Clerk, if you'd please call the roll.
Doty?
Here.
Dodick?
Here.
Register?
Here.
McGee?
Here.
Allgood?
Here.
Williams?
Here.
We'll let the record reflect that all are accounted and present this evening. Are there any conflict of interest declarations from any council members regarding any items on the agenda this evening? Very good. So then that'll move us on to special presentations. We have one this evening. It's a proclamation that I will read. And this is in regards to the 2C Kids Week. So it states, whereas we desire to be a safe and healthy community where people prosper, and whereas our community has shared value for the well-being and support of our children, and whereas adverse childhood experiences, such as abuse, neglect, household dysfunction, or other events that cause trauma in children can have a lifelong impact on individuals and communities, and whereas research has shown that positive childhood experiences can help protect against the poor health and social outcomes associated with ACEs, and whereas a safe, stable, and nurturing environment and a connection to a consistent and trusted adult are critical protective factors, and whereas banding together for our kids will help reinforce the message that they matter and are loved, and whereas community members and local partners are working together to build healthy and resilient communities where kids and families thrive. Now, therefore, I, Jerem Wagner, Mayor of the City of Caldwell, do hereby proclaim April 10th through April 14th, 2023, to be 2C Kids Week in Caldwell, Idaho, where we will demonstrate and celebrate hope as a superpower. And so we just want to do that. I had the opportunity to do a short video this last week for the Caldwell School District, just highlighting this. And again, the model this year for that is that hope is a superpower. And just want to reflect on that and encourage all the citizens that are here and throughout our community to remember that and to strive for hope in your life. And even more important is to try to bring hope to other people's lives on that. So just take that opportunity in that time from April 10th through April 14th to do so. And I don't believe there's anybody here from the school district this evening to receive this, so we'll make sure that we get this over to them. But grateful to be able to do that and just shine a light on our youth here in the community. Do you have the audience participation? Okay, very good. Is there anyone in the audience like to speak on an item that is not on the agenda for us this evening? Mr. Summers?
Mayor, council members, Jerry Summers, Executive Director of Caldwell Chamber of Commerce, 1001 Blaine Street here in Caldwell, Idaho. I'm here to issue a challenge to the City Council, to the Police Department, and the Fire Department. On June 3rd, the Caldwell Chamber of Commerce is conducting a disc tournament called Seatown Disc Down. My staff has decided to put a team together for the Chamber of Commerce, of which myself, Troy Hooper, and James Sokolowski will be on that. And they've challenged us to design our team outfit under Richard Simmons. I said absolutely not, and then I talked to Chief Ingram yesterday, who agreed to the challenge, and he said they will come out as Reno 911. So of course, I'm here to say we'll be out as Richard Simmons' team. Would like to challenge you guys. It's going to be a day of fun and camaraderie and just lighthearted banter back and forth. So we challenge the City Council to put a team together. We challenge the Fire Department to put it together, and we'll even challenge the Engineering Department, legal staff, everybody here. Please come out and join us. Thank you.
Well, just to see you in a Richard Simmons outfit would be worth it in and of itself, Mr. Summers. So thank you so much. We appreciate that. So yeah, and what was the date again on that? It was June 3rd. Very good. We'll get that on our calendar. So very good. And also to see Chief Ingram. So that'd make it worth it just for that. Very good. Thank you so much. We appreciate that. And we appreciate all that you do for the Chamber and all that the Chamber does for the city. So it's a great partnership we have, and we appreciate that very much. So with that, we'll move forward with, we do have some amendments to the agenda, and I believe Council President Doty was going to read.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, the amendments to the agenda. So, correct the description of consent calendar, item number 7 to read, approve resolution authorizing the purchase of 5 vehicles in the amount of $249,735 as approved in the fiscal year 2023 budget for the use by the Caldwell Police Department. Second one will be update the description of old business, item number 1 to read, consider bill number 11, ordinance number 3495, amending chapter 3 of the Caldwell City Code by the addition of a new article, Article 12, providing for an appointed official to serve as the Director of Aviation for the Caldwell Executive Airport, amending chapter 3, Article 3, section 3301 of the Caldwell City Code with a request to move for its passage by title only and approve the summary for publication. And the last will be correct the agenda language on new business number 3 to read, consider resolution requesting reallocation of ARPA funds from infrastructure improvements to public safety equipment needs for a new body-worn camera technology system in the amount up to looks like $29,996.
Very good. So we have a motion for the amendment to the agenda as read by Council President Doty. Do we have a second?
Second.
So we have a second from Councilor Stoddard. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion passes, and the agenda stands amended as noted. Do we have a motion for the approval of the consent calendar? I don't believe any.
As amended.
As amended, yep. So do we have a motion for consent calendar approval as amended?
So moved.
And a second?
Okay.
So a motion from Councilor Stoddard and a second from Councilor Doty for approval of the consent calendar as amended. Madam Clerk, if you please call the roll.
Stoddard?
Yes.
Register?
Yes.
McGee?
Yes.
Allgood?
Yes.
Williams?
Yes.
Doty?
Yes.
Very good. That motion passes unanimously. That moves us on to old business. So our first one is old business action item number 1. And this is one that, again, was just amended. So this is to consider bill number 11, ordinance number 3495, amending chapter 3 of the Caldwell City Code by the addition of a new article, Article 12, providing for an appointed official to serve as the Director of Aviation for the Caldwell Executive Airport. And Mr. Hilty, are you going to touch on this one? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, Council. This is an item that had been carried forward from the last City Council meeting, but it has been modified somewhat from the last meeting. I think what was contemplated in the prior legislation was that the airport manager would become an appointed official. In talking with at least some of you and the mayor, there was, concern about what would happen with our existing airport manager and what process would need to be followed, to fill that appointed official position. I think what came out, at least is my understanding, was there was more concern about having an airport manager. What you see now in the new legislation is a director of aviation is the title, as an appointed official, maybe is being added to the management structure at the airport rather than a change to the existing airport manager. So the bill you have before you tonight adds a new appointed official position to the city. That is the director of aviation. And then there's some very short and sweet duties and responsibilities that are set out there, which is consistent with what we have described for the rest of the appointed officials. The position would report directly to the mayor and would have management and oversight authority over the airport director. So that position remains in place. There would simply be a new position created here. If passed, then this position would be filled the way other vacancies in appointed official positions are filled. The mayor would go through the mayor would need to nominate somebody, and the process that he uses for who to select is not guided by state law. So he would engage whatever process or committee or search committee or review committee he wants. At some point, he would bring forward a name to fill that role, and then that would have to be confirmed by city council like all other appointed officials, and that would be by a majority of the council, meaning 4 of you would have to agree on who slides into that role. So this, as again, with all appointed officials, there's kind of an overlap. Council has some authority and direction here to appoint appointed officials. You have power and authority to remove them as well. But once those spots are filled, mine included, we work very significantly in the day-to-day operations of the city and are ultimately answerable to the mayor. So I guess what I'm forecasting, there may be questions about how this is going to work. And we may not have great answers for that. That's going to be something that the mayor has to work out, and I'm sure he'll listen to you if you have concerns about that. But this is a new management structure if this is passed, and it'll have to be developed as we go. So again, the legislation tonight doesn't change anybody's job, and it doesn't put anybody into this position. It just authorizes a new position, which would be filled by nomination of mayor and the confirmation of council at a future date. That concludes my report. I'd stand for any questions.
Thanks so much, Mr. Hilty, and I'll just throw in a few comments and then we can open it up for discussion, questions for Mark or for myself. So I just kind of thought it might be good to give a little bit of kind of the vision that I see on this, and I believe we've landed at a pretty good spot. It's kind of, you start out in kind of one direction, kind of learn as you go, and then end up where you ultimately wanted to be at the end of the day, and I think that's kind of where we're at right now. So kind of the vision that I have would be that director of aviation is kind of planning and zoning is kind of my world. So, you have a long-range planning department and you have a current planning department. Current planning department kind of does your day-to-day tasks. They're taking in applications, they're writing staff reports, doing those things. Your long-range planning department kind of looks to the future. They're working on your comprehensive plan, things, 10, 20 years into the future for the city. And I kind of envision that something similar at the airport, where you're at the airport manager, again, doing kind of what he's doing right now, those day-to-day tasks, making sure, the leases are going and happening, the inspections are happening, things of that nature, that we're in compliance today. And then that the director of aviation obviously would be over the airport manager, but also kind of looking to the future, as we continue to plan for the airport in regards to the improvements out there, the hangars that we want to build in the future, the airport master plan, things of that nature. And so, I think it could be a great thing to have a dedicated position for that as we want to continue to grow the airport and make it a true economic asset for the city. This could be a great way to get there at the end of the day. And so appreciate all the work that council's done. I know there's been a lot of elbow grease on that and kind of working towards a good solution, and feel that this could be that solution in that regard. So those are kind of just some of the thoughts that I have. And with that, we'd open for any questions for Mr. Hilty or for any council members or any discussion. So, yes, Councilor McGee.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is a question for Mr. Hilty, and I think I heard you right, but I just want to make it clear on the record, and so I understand too, this, if we were to pass this tonight, if we were to approve this tonight, it does not affect any current positions at the airport. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Any other questions or, yes, Counselor Stodic?
Mr. Mayor, Mark, so this does add another position, right?
Yes, I think, yes, it'd be a net gain, and then, like, this is me speaking, not the legislation. You guys are coming into budget season, right? If you have another position, you're gonna have to figure out how to fund it. There may be discussions about what the structure looks like as part of the budget process, but this is a net gain for purposes of what you're doing tonight, yes.
Yeah, because like I say, to me, it's another layer of management. I'm not sure I would agree to that. So that's not what we talked about originally, so, anyway, my comments.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Yes, Counselor Allgood.
Just a wording question here. Listing under appointments, listing the people to be appointed, it lists the treasurer, finance director as one person. I thought that was two people now. Rochelle and is that one person still, or?
No, it's two. There's a few things in there that we need to clean up. And I know that we had looked at, do we do that now, or, so to not kind of convolute it too much. So there's that. There was actually a couple things in there that we kind of need to clear up. So we do have two. We have a treasurer and a finance director, two separate.
Right now in this wording, they're still together, but they will be separated at some point?
Yeah, and they are two separate positions right now. So there's that, and there's a few other things that we need to clean up in there. So if that, kind of go through this, see where we're at, and then we can come back with a kind of a cleanup ordinance.
All right.
Are there comments or questions, or? Okay. Any discussion on this, or any motions?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, Counselor Williams.
I move to sponsor bill number 11, ordinance number 3495, and move for its passage by title only and approve the summary for publication.
Very good. Do we have a second?
Second?
We have a motion for Counselor Williams and a second for Counselor Doty. Do I need to read this, Debbie? So I will read this, and then we will open it for if there's any discussion among the council regarding that motion. So, this is ordinance number 3495, bill number 11, an ordinance enacted by the Caldwell City Council amending Chapter 3 by the addition of a new article, Article 12, creating an appointed official who shall be the Director of Aviation, amending Chapter 3, Article 3, Section 331, Caldwell City Code pertaining to the appointment of appointed officials, providing for an effective date, providing for severability, and repealing all ordinances, resolutions, orders, and parts thereof in conflict herewith. So we do have a motion for passage of this bill and ordinance and a second. Is there any discussion on that motion?
Mr. Mayor.
Councilor McGee.
Thank you. Just a couple of thoughts. I think the council obviously heard my question to the city attorney, and the city attorney already talked about it. We all know that. I just wanted to make sure that it was on the record that positions that are out there, and I think there are two, those are not affected by this. This would be the establishment of a new position. I've spent some time at the airport, and I've talked to many people about this, both in business and who are pilots. And it's clear, and this is my fourth year on the council, that the airport is growing, and it has become and due large part to our current director, frankly, it has become a very effective economic engine to this community. It's a big part of what we do, and I think it's important as this city moves forward that the council have input on who is going to lead that airport. For 20 years, we had the same leadership in the executive position. For a couple of years now, we've had a mayor who understands things and understands what he's doing. Mayor, you've been involved in state government and city government, so you have experience. My concern is a period of time where another executive might be elected who doesn't have that type of experience that the previous mayor did or that you did, and that the city council doesn't have a say on helping to select these important positions. I think, set aside any short-term discussion, I think the long-term benefit to the city of Caldwell is to have this as an appointed official. And Mayor, the fact that you support this kind of backs that up. I mean, technically, this takes a little bit of power away from the executive and puts it back with the city council. And the fact that you're supportive of that tells me a lot, that this is something that we need to do. And, if I do vote yes on this, I also want to make sure that the council knows and that the public knows that I'm doing this because of that reason. It doesn't have anything to do with any current management issues or anything like that. This is strictly a policy issue where I believe the city council, long-term, for mayor, hopefully you're the mayor for 40 years, but when you're done, I mean that, we don't know who the next one's gonna be, and that's what concerns me. And so giving the 6 people on the council that voice and helping select that person, I think is very important.
Yeah, thank you so much. Appreciate those comments. Any other discussion?
I just
Yes,
want,
Counselor Ogden.
first of all, kind of ditto to what Councilor McGee said, and he just blew my mind. I thought he said he was gonna run again next year for mayor.
Not what I was saying.
And then he said 40 years for you. I'm like a little confused.
That might have been a curse. I don't know if 40 years is
No, but,
a long time.
and I wanna agree with what Councilor McGee said, and our airport is thriving, it's doing now that this east side is over, it's just gonna be amazing. I just wanna remind people it didn't get where it is by accident. There was a lot of hard work put in there, a lot of experience put in there, and I think we need to remember that again, we didn't wake up one day with this fantastic airport. It took a lot of work to get it where it was, and we're very blessed to have it. And I agree also that if we can do things, again, I feel like there's so much on the horizon. If we can do things to usher that in, I feel like it's a positive move on our part, and I support that.
Very good. Excellent. Thank you so much. Any other discussion?
Mr. Mayor, can I ask,
Yeah.
this might be a little bit unusual, because I know there's a motion on the floor, but do you mind if I ask a question of the city attorney?
No, go right ahead.
Okay, thank you,
Always
Mayor.
appropriate for that.
Thank you, Mayor. And, Mr. Hilty, based on what you've said and based on what I read, there is nothing that would, stop anyone who's currently employed at the airport or any other city employee from applying for that administrative position. Is that correct?
That's correct, yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Very good. Any other discussion or any questions for staff? Okay, very good. Madam Clerk, if you'd please call the roll.
Williams,
Yes.
Doty,
Yes.
Exotic,
No.
Register.
Yes.
McGee.
Yes.
Alden.
Yes.
Very good. So that motion passes with 5 in favor and 1 against. That moves us on to, old business number 2, which is another continued action item. This is for a resolution authorizing the purchase of a 2024 T480 Kenworth plow truck through the Sourcewell Cooperative Purchasing Alliance. And Raylyn, looks like you get to do this one, so the time is yours.
So, since I spoke to this last time and Brent's not here, I figured I would speak to it. I did speak with Brent, explained to him kind of the process of budgeting. And, we looked at the streets budget, we looked at the fund balance, which is currently just over $12 million. And, we would like to purchase this using fund balance out of the fiscal year 23 budget, is what this resolution does. We will not receive it until 2024, so it does take a little bit of time, but we will order it right away if this does get approved.
And so just a quick question before we go to council. So when ordered, pay for it, then not on delivery, is that kind of the?
We order it when it's delivered,
Mhm.
but the way the budget works is when you order it is when it's budgeted.
Okay.
So,
Perfect. Okay, excellent. Thank you so much. Questions from council? Yes, Councilor Doty.
Hi, Ray Lynn, how are you?
good, how are you?
Good. Do we know what vehicle it's replacing or what the need is for the vehicle?
I did not discuss that with Brent, so I don't have that answer.
Okay, and we have the budget year coming up, right, here real soon, so we don't know what we need it for. I mean, clearly it's got a purpose, but we don't know the status of,
So I do know that I
And
was discussing with Rochelle kind of, the replacement schedules and stuff like that earlier today. And, you know, it's something that we're going to address and look at kind of those replacement schedules, but I do not know, based off of my history, those replacement schedules currently.
Mr. Mayor, I just have a comment on that
Yeah,
then,
yep.
that, and we're so close to the budget cycle, clearly Brent's not here to answer that question. Before I would feel comfortable supporting over $250,000 would be, what's the status of the fleet currently and what it's replacing?
Yeah. Did you, Mr. McDonald, did you have any information on that?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor, Councilman Doty. The purpose of this is to replace the older fleet, and so there's an older truck. When we budget the trucks, and this is for city vehicles for all departments, we put a service year in there, and in most cases, it would be like 10 years. And so the oldest truck in the fleet would be the truck that's approached this 10-year service limit, and a lot of times, usually the truck has started to suffer mechanical malfunctions and is in the shop quite a bit, and so it would be the oldest truck in the fleet that would be replaced by this new truck.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Councilor Doty.
And that's what I'm saying, we don't have the data, that's what we normally do, but we don't have someone here to say this is the truck and it is experiencing problems versus just it's hit its 10-year mark and we need to replace it. And that's what I'm saying, I would like a little bit of more accountability, on especially these $300,000 trucks. Is there a log of what it's replacing and why it's replacing it? So.
Okay. I don't have that information.
Okay, very good. Councilor Williams, did you have a?
Yeah, I would just, add to that, if we knew better what condition it was in, one of the things we continue to hear about is a need out at the airport to plow the runway. Before we just go getting rid of machine that maybe works, maybe we ought to think of using it for an alternate purpose if we were to approve this, but there's just more questions to ask to know if this is a dual purpose purchase or if we're just cycling through equipment, because I think we can look at ways to utilize this if we had further data.
Good. Other discussion or questions? Yes, Councilor McGee?
Well, thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I guess the question that I have, and kind of in light of the last two comments that are made, is, I mean, is there an impending emergency that, what I've heard, you mentioned that we'll order it, and we still won't receive it for several months, right?
Yeah, so the emergency is the supply chain issue. It takes so long to get here, and there's only a limited open window, is my understanding of it. So, Kenworth is telling us there's only this time that we can order it, to be able to order it, to get it on, and then to be able to receive it in time to be able to use it by next year.
Mind
Yeah,
me
go ahead.
following up, do they give you a drop dead date by when you needed to order it, or?
I did not receive that from August. I wish I'd asked that question. I apologize.
Any other questions, or maybe I'll throw one out there, just kind of not sure where council is gonna go with this, but if it may go with the direction that, where I'm thinking in my head, if this is continued 2 weeks to the next city council meeting, is that gonna put a big dent or hamper in the ordering of this truck? Is it, I mean, you know what I'm saying? Does 2 weeks, is that how big of an issue is that, I guess, is the question.
I mean, I think when I talked to August last week, before it was continued, before I asked you to continue it last council, he did push the urgency, but I asked him for 2 weeks and he said that was gonna be okay. I thought Brent was gonna be here to speak to this, so I don't know about the additional 2 weeks, so.
Very good. Any other questions? Any council members? Okay, very good. Thank you so much. Appreciate that. Okay, I think it sounds like there might be some discussion on this item. So any discussion, thoughts from council on this? Again, this is an action item, so, there's, I guess, 3 options: to approve, to deny, or to continue. And so any thoughts and discussion on those?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, Councilor
just what
Doty.
I've already said earlier is that we just should have more data when we're making these types of purchases, in my opinion, so it's transparent to our citizens, to our taxpayers, to ourselves as to what we're replacing, why we're replacing it. I'm not saying the truck isn't needed or warranted or we need things plowed, clearly. But I think it's good business to let people know why we are replacing a piece of equipment of this expense.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, Counselor Algen.
I'd make a motion that we continue this particular action item to April 18th at 6 PM in this location.
Very good. So we have a motion from Counselor Algen. Is there a second?
Second.
Second from Counselor Stoddard. Again, this is to continue, old business action item number 2. That would be to our next city council meeting on April 18th. Is that correct? Okay, April 18th, 2 weeks from tonight. Any discussion on that motion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? So that motion passes. So that will be, again, brought up in 2 weeks, so we'll make sure that we have a lot more detailed information on that, in that regards. Okay, that moves us on to new business, action item number 1. And just as a reminder for myself, we do have somebody, via Zoom that does wish to testify, I believe, on this item, so we'll want to make sure that we do get to that individual. So this is a public hearing quasi judicial matter, for PUD 22-6, sub 22-34. Bob Unger of Unger Enterprises, applying for a planned unit development and preliminary plat, on approximately 4.5 acres. Development will consist of 39 residential townhome lots with 9 fourplex buildings and 1 triplex building. Property is zoned R3, which is high-density residential, and fronts North Illinois Avenue in Caldwell, Idaho. Hearing examiner did forward this with a recommendation of approval. That hearing was on November 9th of 2022. So we will start with, well, is the applicant here for this one?
Mayor, the applicant was supposed to be over Zoom.
Oh,
Seems like he was having trouble connecting, but there should be a representative here for Mr. Unger.
Very good. So I don't have anybody signed up. And I didn't see anybody raise their hand. Is there anybody here representing Mr. Unger on this item this evening? Okay, I don't, and he's not on Zoom right now, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so let's, if the council is amenable, let's move this. So the proposal would be to, again, this would be amending the agenda to relocate new business action item number 1 to action item number 4, or 3A, either one, just before 4, to give him some time to see if we can get him on there. Do we have does anybody support that motion in a second? So a motion from Counselor Stoddard and a second from Counselor Doty, again, to amend the agenda, relocating action item number 1 under news business to action item number 3B. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion passes. So that will, and if you don't mind maybe trying to see if we can't get a hold of him, I don't know if you have his number or anything like that, or somebody does. That moves us to new business action item number 2. And this is case number SUB 23-5, a request by BVA Development on behalf of Idaho Central Credit Union, for modification to the final plat for North Ranch Business Park Phase number 2. And Alex, are you doing the presentation on this one?
Yes, I am.
It's all you.
Want to pull up my PowerPoint there? We're having Rob pull up the PowerPoint. All right. Thank you, Mayor and Council. Alex Jones, Associate Planner, 61 Cleveland Boulevard. Today, we are discussing the North Ranch plat modification. The request of the final plat modification of...
Can we turn this TV on here so we can see it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Come on, IT.
There we go.
Yeah, that's right. We may need to modify your job description.
Thank you.
All right. So, to continue, the applicant is requesting to modify the final plat of the North Ranch Business Park to better accommodate future commercial use in the parcel. Final plat modification was required to relocate the platted PUID easement. Normally, we would do a lot line adjustment, but with this easement needing to be moved, this is why we're doing the final plat modification. On the left, we will see the original plat, and on the right, we'll see the new plat. It is mainly for Block 3, Lot 2. The northern part is going to be higher and is relocating that easement to the north as well. And this is also due to the Highway 2026 widening. Utilities have already been provided in this area. We received no responses from any agencies and no public responses. Staff has analyzed this request and it is in compliance with the city code and comp plan, and staff recommends approval. And I stand for questions.
Very good. Do we have any questions for staff at this time? Okay. Oh, yes.
Just a quick one, Alex. With this change, there's nothing required of the city to make this happen as far as no cost to us, I guess what I'd ask. It's all already built in.
Correct.
Thank you.
Any other questions for staff at this time? Okay. We do have one person signed up, for this item. Ms. Hart, if you don't mind, if you could please come forward and just state your name and address for the record. And then you'll have up to 8 minutes, if you need it all, for your presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, council members. I am Haley Hart. I'm with BVA Development. I'm the applicant. I'm at 1144 South Silverstone Way in Meridian. Alex, thank you. That was great. It's a pretty simple application. As you stated, we are just looking to amend the plat. We are doing this because of an existing PUID that exists around the boundary of said plat. So this will be relocating that PUID. This will be to accommodate for additional parking for ICCU, who has purchased this lot from BVA and is looking to move forward with their construction, looking to get another business here in Caldwell. So I am in favor as the applicant. So let me know if you have any questions, and I will be here.
Perfect. Excellent. Thank you so much. Are there any questions from council at this time? Okay. Thank you so much. And Haley is the only one that has signed up to testify on this matter, so I would stand for a motion to close the public testimony portion of this hearing. And second?
Yeah.
So we have a motion from Councilor McGee and a second from Councilor Register to close the public testimony portion of this hearing. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? That motion passes. So that moves us on to discussion. And again, staff is always available for questions if you do have any questions in regards to this item, but pretty cut and dry. So if there's any discussion or any motions that be appropriate at this time. Councilor Allgood.
I'm a little confused. Usually we have a bill number and thing that we sponsor.
So on this one, so it's already been, everything's annexed, things of that nature, it's just the subdivision plat, yep.
I'm not sure how to word this, but, I would make a motion that we approve this amendment to case number SUB 23-000005.
Very good. So we have a motion from Councilor Allgood and a second from Councilor McGee for approval of sub 23-5, request by BVA Development on behalf of Idaho Central Credit Union for the modification to the final plat for North Ranch Business Park Phase 2. Is there any discussion on the motion? Very good. Madam Clerk, if you'd please call the roll.
Albin,
Yes.
Williams,
Yes.
Register,
Yes.
Doty,
Yes.
Dottie,
Yes.
McGee.
Very good. That motion passes unanimously. Is there a motion to close, new business action item number 2?
So moved.
And a second?
Second?
So the motion from Councilor Stoddard and a second from Councilor Doty to, close action item number 2. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. That moves us on to action item number 3. And this is consider resolution requesting use of ARPA funds for the purchase of a WatchGuard technology camera system, only allowing on-site storage in the amount of approximately just over $1 million for use by the Caldwell Police Department. Oh, do I? Oh. And this was one of the items that was amended on the agenda that was right at the beginning. It looks like we get Deputy Chief Sopoaga for the presentation. So don't hold back, council. Take it to him. Get some good questions ready.
Mr. Mayor, council members, good evening, and thank you for being here to hear my presentation once again. So first off, this is kind of a repeat. Obviously, at the last council meeting, we had requested to use ARPA funding to look into funding the first year of our Axon body camera system. After the meeting, I really educated myself. Raylene has been a great help talking to her, but the chief also kind of asked me, hey, why didn't we go with this other offer, which I'm going to present here shortly. So, please bear with me, I'll be fast. But basically, this is what the Axon body camera looks like, and this is what we are requesting as far as ARPA funding. So, for us, they're credible, they're a reputable company. You can see the stats up there. They are in 100% of all major cities. Locally, they are used by Ada County Sheriff's Office, Boise City, Meridian Police Department, Garden City, you name it, most of them have this because of the type of system it is. When we talk about systems that we currently have, and one of the important things that we are looking for is that middle portion where it says Axon Evidence, Axon Records. So this is a one-stop shop. It holds all of the digital evidence. Currently, we have 3 different systems or 3 different ways to store evidence. We have our body-worn camera, which is through our current program. But if we have anything outside of that, digital recordings, photographs, it goes to another system. So this is important for us because, one, it saves us on costs, but also it makes the process more efficient when we need to send reports to the courthouse for any kind of redactions that are needed. They have a program, and also for a lot of the requests that are coming in through the public records request. So some of the features, and I'll go through this quickly, but they do have features where, it's called signal sidearm, where basically there's a signal. So anytime you pull your weapon out of your holster, your body camera turns on, and then everyone else's body cameras in a specific range turns on as well. So it's good for transparency and accountability. They also have that for the taser, and the tasers we currently use is owned by this company called Axon. They also have systems where the community, if they're taking photos or if they're taking cameras of digital evidence, they can send them to us and we can upload them into the specific system. Like I said, it's a one-stop shop for us. Kind of one of the last features we talked about, or I wanted to highlight, is they have tracking and a map feature where all the cameras, you can track them. There also is a process where we can live stream. So if I hear a pursuit going on from my desk, I can kind of turn it on, see what's going on. If it's getting a little too dangerous, I can say, hey, terminate that pursuit. So just another set of oversight for us. So kind of some of the issues we've had and kind of our current state with our body cam system is the biggest one we have is we've had loss of digital evidence. So this comes in really big cases. Some of the federal investigation we were under last year, we lost body camera footage that we couldn't recover. Also in a manslaughter case, we lost body camera footage that we couldn't recover. So obviously this is not good for us. The other issue we're having is storage space. So we thought we had more time, but right now currently our storage is almost full. So basically we're going through the system and going through some videos where they're old enough and all the cases have been adjudicated that we can delete them just in order for us to free up space. So obviously with Axon, they have unlimited storage space and it goes to the cloud. Part of our current situation is we just haven't had really good communication with our current company. So customer service is really a big deal. I've worked with Axon, the chiefs work with Axon, and I think customer service-wise, they're probably one of the best companies that I've ever had to work with. So for us, Axon is the answer. They're reliable, they're proven, and they're trusted, and it's definitely the company that we want to look towards. So this is kind of the request, and it's over a 5-year span. So if it did get enacted this year, it would run all the way until 2028. When the last time I came up, for the first year, the implementation was about $130,000, and then every year after that, it was $225,000 for the program. So we are requesting to use ARPA funding for this specific purchase. A big part of it is when we know that ARPA funding, after doing a little bit more research, it has to be obligated by December 2024. Also, it must be expended by December 2026. With this size of project, we definitely need to invest in a long-term plan with a reliable system that we won't have to obviously use city funding for. We could use this federal funding that we still do have. So through federal purchasing, So we have not signed a contract with anyone. We have not finalized a vendor, but obviously Axon is a company that we're looking into. We did some research, and there is something called local government cooperative agreements. And so Sourcewell is a company that we're looking into. So they do all the work, they save us the time, because time is of the essence right now because we're running out of space. But they basically do the bidding process for us, and then they get back to us. So I've been working with Raylyn, and what she's going to do or propose for next council meeting is to provide a resolution for the council to approve to use Sourcewell as a federal purchasing company. So that's kind of where we're at right now. I'm open for any questions you have.
Thank you so much. Any questions from council?
Mr. Mayor?
Councilor Stoddard?
Deputy Chief, some of the emails we've been getting is, did we vet any other suppliers? Why or why not?
Yeah, so I think this is where Sourcewell comes in. They're the company that actually will go through the vetting process and go through the bidding process for us regarding, I think, I would say the cheapest, but the best value for us. And I think Raylyn could answer a little bit more to that as well.
Yeah, Raylyn.
I have a question before
Yes.
you switch. Do these have GPS on them?
Yes.
I think, personally, I like that because I know, like, at least with my experience in dispatching, like, we can, track a car, but once they get out, you can't really track a body or however far they go, and seeing officers lose radios and stuff like that. So this actually will pinpoint if they need help or whatever.
Yeah, so the camera has GPS on it, and there's a phone app for it too, and you could do it remotely from your computer desk if you need to find them.
Yeah.
Thanks so much. Any other questions for Chief Soplaga? Okay. Yes.
Chief, I have a whole bunch of questions. I've just been writing a whole catalog down here. So with this $1 million price tag, how long will that supply us with storage? Do you have an estimate on that?
So it's for the 5 years.
5 years? And then are we planning on continuing with cameras in the cars, and is there any mesh with that?
So currently we have a different company for our in-car system. I would like to go to Axon because they do have their own in-car system, but I honestly haven't looked into their system thus far, and I haven't used it anywhere else. Where I had body cams for Axon, we didn't have in-car cameras.
So we would have kind of two separate video storages for a while anyway.
Okay, very good.
I have a question.
Yes.
So right now you use WatchGuard, is that right?
That's correct.
And do you have any kind of idea like what the failure rate is with that, with not recording or not uploading? I know storage is an issue, but with as far as changing companies, I know there's been problems with WatchGuard. And I think unfortunately we're being met with a great big huge bill because we've sort of ignored it, I think, for a long time, is I think what we're getting at, right?
That's correct.
Yeah. So the $1 million now is 5 years, and then after 5 years, is it another $1 million?
I don't know what it's going to be after that. Obviously, there's going to be a price tag on it. For the 5-year contract, what they gave us each year, which is pretty much for storage, if you want to say, was $225,000 a year.
Do you know what we pay for the WatchGuard system?
Off the top of my head, I think it's like in the 100,000.
But it's not working.
Yes, it's not working.
Good. Any other questions for Chief Soplaga?
Just a quick one, Mayor,
Yeah,
if you don't
Councilman
mind. Deputy Chief, with the current system you use, I am fascinated by the fact that you can do this in real time, that you can watch this in real time. That's amazing to me. Can you do that with your current system?
As far as I know, no, you can't do it with WatchGuard. Will they have it in the future? I mean, they're all body-worn camera systems, so they all kind of copy after each other.
But at least at this point, you don't have
At
that
this point, as far as I know, no, they don't have that.
All right, thank you.
And I just want to say, I don't know what system Nampa Police uses, but this was something that, at least like a couple of years before I left there, they introduced, and dispatch had. we didn't have access to like real-time video because they didn't want us turning it on if officers were, you know,
Yeah.
whatever. There was a GPS in there, so we actually, it was like linked with Google, I think is
Mhm.
what these do. And so we could see exactly where they were, which helped us give better descriptions and stuff like that if they were lost to officers that couldn't find addresses or whatever it was. But there's a safety component to it too, as opposed to just the, you know, being able to have the updated stuff. Like, there's no reason why officers should, like, as soon as they get out of their car, is my understanding here with the system that you have now, they're no longer monitored by anybody. Nobody knows where they are. So if they get in a foot pursuit and they're running a mile and they don't know where they are, because sometimes that happens, right, in the dark, and they're in the middle of a field, nobody can find them. And so that's a big part of why I'm, you know, I mean, I understand the necessity for it, but I think that's a perk, in my opinion.
Good. Thank you so much. Any other questions?
Mayor.
Councilor Williams.
Chief, just to be clear, we approved the Axon purchase. This is, essentially saying, hey, we've got ARPA funds that need to be spent anyway. This gets us a longer period of time with this system. So that's really the crux of this tonight. Am I incorrect in that?
Yes, sir. You're correct. Yes.
Thank you.
Commissioner, I have one.
Yes.
I wanna make sure the notes that we have here say only allowing for on-site storage. So are we talking about on-site storage for this new system, or are we talking about cloud storage with this new system?
For the new system, we're talking about cloud storage.
Okay, so the on-site storage, as it says here, is our current thing.
That's what we currently have, yes.
Okay.
Okay, very good. Councilor Doty.
I would just say though, it also locks it in for a 5-year period, where some of the concern was what happens after the 1 year if they raise the fee, as, Councilor Allgood and I have discussed, and so this is one way to lock in that, so they can't surprise us year after year with a huge bill after we've made the transition, so.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Any other questions
I have a question, just real quick, about the wording. So this amendment is the correct, not what's on the agenda? Because it says to consider resolution requesting the ARPA funds for the purchase of the WatchGuard Technologies camera system.
Yep, so it'd be the one that was read at the beginning of the meeting.
Earlier, right?
on
Okay,
that,
I thought
so,
it had been
mhm.
corrected already on the agenda.
Yep. Okay, very good. Ray Lynn, I think there was a couple questions for you, if you don't mind coming over. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Chief Soplaga.
So, a couple of things. First, this is just for approval of ARPA funds. We're not approving a vendor of Axon with this resolution. With federal purchasing, Rochelle and I do our due diligence to make sure that we are very good at following purchasing guidelines, because they are so much more strict than state guidelines. And so we have done our research to try to find something that makes it to where we don't have to go through the long process of going out to bid, and it's expensive for the city to do that. And so Sourcewell, which is like NASBO, if you've heard of NASBO through the state of Idaho, is exactly like that. It's a local government cooperative agreement. And so they've gone out to bid, and we are just agreeing to the lowest bid with that contract. So that is what that is. So next council, I will be coming back with a resolution, because by state law, we have to have something that council agrees on that we can do that. So that is what I'm gonna do for federal purchasing. So.
Very good. Any questions for, yes, Councilor Allgood?
I just wanna make sure, because I always get nervous with federal money.
No.
We're meeting all the ARPA standards because we're changing what we're using the money for. We're still within standards for ARPA requirements?
We are, yes. So Rochelle and I approved the application that police submitted, and we've gone through all the approvals of that, yes.
Thank you.
Very good. Any other questions?
Question.
Yes, Councilor
Did-
Register.
How much do we have in ARPA funds left?
Total that we received was just over 12 million. I'd be happy to give you an update next council on how much we still have left.
Okay. And then I guess I just wanted to clarify, like, do you have to take the lowest bid for this project?
So there's different things with federal funds. It's kind of lowest bid, but Like, if somebody just doesn't bid on the project and just bids $1, obviously we're not. Lowest acceptable bid that meets all the requirements. So,
Yep, any other questions? Okay, very good. Excellent. Thank you so much. Thank you, Lynn, and thank you again, Chief Sofuaga. So again, this is, resolution for, I don't think that anybody's cleaned up, right? No. Okay, that's what I was thinking. Okay, so this is resolution, requesting use of the ARPA funds for the purchase, I'm gonna go to this one, so I read it right. Reallocation of ARPA funds from infrastructure improvements to public safety equipment needs for a new body worn camera technology system. The amount of up to $1.029996 million. Do we have a sponsor or motion for approval of this resolution?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
A motion from Councilor Stoddard and a second from Councilor Register for approval of this resolution. Is there any discussion on that motion? All those in favor say aye. Oh. Okay. Even though it's just a resolution? Okay, do a roll call.
Stoddard?
Yes.
Register?
Yes.
McGee? Alden?
Yes.
Williams?
Yes.
Doty?
Yes.
Okay, and that motion passes unanimously. So that moves us kind of back to what was action item number 1 under new business, which is now 3A. Is he online, the applicant?
Mr. Unger is not online, but we do have his representative here.
Okay, perfect, very good. Then if you-
Goodbye.
or maybe not. Maybe they just left. So, okay, Alex, if you could go ahead and do your staff presentation, that'd be great.
All right, I'll try to make it quick here. So today, thank you, Mayor and Council. Alex Jones, Associate Planner, 61 Cleveland Boulevard. For today's request, we are looking at a PUD with preliminary plat. The project location is a 4.55 acre parcel located east of the North 3rd Avenue and North Illinois Avenue intersection. The applicant is proposing a planned unit development with preliminary plat for the Monument Valley Townhome subdivision. As you can see, here are some photos of the subject parcel. On the left, you will see the north end, and the south is the right picture there. Just to give a rundown, we are looking at 39 townhomes are being proposed, along with a playground, shade structures, barbecue pits, and seating areas. Staff would like to let the council know this is not a multifamily development, and this is in the R3 zoning. We are sitting at 8.5 units per acre. The R3 zone allows for up to 25 units per acre, so this development is way under what is normally allowed in this zone. For landscaping, code requires 10% open space. With the PUD, the applicant has provided 25%, equaling about 1.15 acres of qualifying open space. They are in compliance with all landscaping, land use separations, pathways, and parking requirements. Here we have some elevations of the townhome. These townhomes will be both in mainly a fourplex with one triplex up to the north. For existing conditions, it is currently in the city as R3, which is high-density residential. To the east, we have single-family residential. To the west, a mix of M1 manufacturing or light industrial, and R2, which is medium density. For the 2440 comprehensive plan, this is shown as high-density residential with low density to the east, traditional neighborhood to the west, and manufacturing production. Utilities are available. They will be coming through Illinois. This is in the Caldwell School District, and we did not receive any comments from the school district. For public notifications, we did get a letter from Dave White and White Peterson, his legal representative. The letter was in concern of the southern building's heights next to his property and how it may affect his property's visibility and value. Staff is able to answer additional questions on this concern after this presentation. Staff also received a late public response from Boise Valley Monument. Just to read this off. They are in favor of this development with the caveat of they would want to make sure the landscaping is taken care of along North Illinois. With that, there is a condition for an HOA, so all landscaping will be taken care of. And I will bring this up to you for a late exhibit.
I'll go ahead and label this CC 1001. This late exhibit. Again, it's a email from Boise Valley Monument Company.
Staff finds the proposed request is in compliance with the Caldwell City codes and is conformance with the comprehensive plan, aligns with 4 goals and 9 policies. Staff recommends that if council approves the request, that it will be subject to the conditions in the FCOs. And I stand for questions.
Thank you so much, Alex. Any questions from council for staff?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Councilor Stoddard.
Alex, there's I can't remember the name of it, there's an irrigation district, going past the Maverick Store Monument outfit there on that street. Is this included in that district? Because like I say, they're having water, or had water problems for I don't know how long.
Do you remember what the irrigation district?
I wish I could remember the name of the irrigation district. I don't, it's not on top of my head right now.
That'd be Golden Gate irrigation.
Golden Gate, yeah, that's it, yeah. Is that part of this or not?
Yes, I believe the Golden Gate Canal runs through it and it'll be relocated.
Okay, and is the city gonna take over that irrigation district, or how are we gonna?
You're looking at me and I'm gonna look at Rob.
There are times last year they didn't have water for months, so I'm just curious.
So thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councilman Stoddard, the way the development works is the developer is obligated to work with the irrigation district to secure the water necessary, assuming that the site has water rights. And it is their responsibility to comply with Caldwell Municipal Irrigation District standards. Once they have met those obligations, they've built their system to city standards, then the system is dedicated to the city for operation in compliance with Caldwell Municipal Irrigation District standards.
Will Golden Gate go away then, once we take over, or not?
So it's, the way it works is, this parcel here, this area here, once the irrigation system's completed, it is annexed into the city irrigation district, and so the city then maintains that portion. Golden Gate is still a provider, and I believe they would provide the irrigation water, but then once it's passed to the city, then the city maintains and operates the irrigation system on the site.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for staff? Yes, Councilor Allgood.
Couple questions, Alex. You know, the canal runs high above it on the hill up there. Is there any safety mitigation, safety or issues there? I mean, are they doing anything? A year or two ago, we had an issue with the liner on that canal bubble up and it took out the sidewalk all the way down the hill. Are they doing anything for safety purposes there?
On their plan, they do show some retaining walls along areas that would be a possible danger, so to better help. Other than that, I can't fully answer that.
Okay. And then there's some property, I believe it's directly behind Mr. White's property. There's a driveway that goes around behind. Is there like a right of way through there? Has that been discussed?
I'm gonna have Rob pull up the web map just so I can get everyone can get an idea of the area we're speaking of.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's a slow day.
Mr. Mayor, while we're
Yeah.
waiting for that to download, can I ask
Yeah,
Rob,
please. Yeah.
probably Rob a question? Rob, you heard Councilman Allgood's question about safety and that canal. and apparently there's some retaining walls that'll be built as a way to take care of that situation. Is that just help enlighten me, is there a specific review that the applicant had to go through on something like that? Is that something that you and your staff have to bless before that happens? Just educate me as to what happens in a situation like that.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Councilman McGee. In this case, it is a little bit unique. The canal is perched up pretty high on the side of the hill. The city does not have a review process or requirements to mitigate from a potential canal rupture or break. The retaining walls, my understanding is those retaining walls are to help firm up the side of the hill where the buildings are adjacent to that hill there. I don't know that anything's in place to mitigate, to save the buildings if the canal was to rupture. I don't know that maybe that's not a feasible request. But on a city side, we don't have any requirement to mitigate that. That's something that the property owner has to assess on their own, and what the feasibility is of putting something in and what their liabilities are. In addition to that, it's, we have had, as Councilman Allgood mentioned, we did have that rupture several years ago right up on the hill where the canal crosses the road, and it ran down the road. We've had other issues a little further to the west where there have been ruptures, and so that is always a possibility. Because it's not a floodplain area or anything like that, then there's no requirement that we can impose on the development.
Thank you.
The map is finally up, refreshed, it looks like. So I think, was it right of way that we were looking at or for in that area?
He's right in the right spot if you just zoom in there. See the property around behind, you see North Illinois, and then the property, and then the driveway that goes around to the property behind the back there, in the back there, right there, yeah. I don't know, maybe the same person owns all the property, but there's somebody that lives there.
I believe that would be Dave Witt's property. To my best knowledge, there hasn't been any talks about an easement for his driveway.
Does he access, is this his access to get back there?
Yes.
Okay.
I think we can let the representative touch on that.
Okay, perfect. Any other questions for staff at this time? Okay, thank you so much. And so we will need, whoever the applicant is, if you could come and sign in. Do you have the, or do I still have it?
You need me to come up there?
Yeah, hold on one second. If you don't mind, just so we don't forget, we'll get it right now. So I'll just hand this to you. If you could just write in your name and address on that front sheet, for me in favor, and then bring it back up. Thank you so much. And if you want to go up to the podium there, and if you'll just state your name and address, and then you'll have 8 minutes for your
Okay.
presentation, and any questions from the council after.
Sure. Ryan Meinert, address 800 West Main Street, Suite 1460, Boise, 83702. And I'm the applicant. Bob was supposed to be joining us with a presentation, but at the last minute, he sent me. So it'll be short and sweet as far as what I have. We've been working with Andy quite a bit. We agree with staff. We agree with the conditions of approval that they have. And I think at that point, I could just answer whatever questions you have.
Okay, very good. Okay, so I think we'll jump into questions then. So Councilor McGee's ready to fire away.
Well, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm just trying to get that put to rest that canal issue. And this may be unfair to you, because I have a feeling you're kind of pinch hitting here, but do you have any thoughts as to that canal and the safety concerns and how those have been addressed?
Well, I'm not prepared with this one, because this one's kind of coming out, or I would have had some measurements and maybe some engineering, but, you know, it's my thought that that canal seems to be maintained pretty well. I didn't know that there was some rupture before, and maybe we could see where that was done, and maybe our engineers can look at, and maybe, I mean, we've had geotech out there. Our geotech guys, we have test pits, and at least for our own studies, I haven't even thought about doing any testing up there to see if there's weakness. I mean, there's a lot of topography, as you can tell, that we're challenged with. And so around that road, we are planning on doing some retaining walls. I don't know what that's gonna do as far as like protecting any sort of a breach of that thing. Haven't even thought about it. It seems like it's far back enough, but, I mean, it's not in a floodway, it's not in a floodplain, so we just didn't do any work in that direction. Does that at least answer some of your question?
Yeah, I think that helps, and does lead to another question that I'll have for Mr. McDonald maybe in a moment, but I can hold for then.
Any other questions from council? Yes, Councilor Allgood.
Just on the right of way, going back behind that property there, is that a dedicated driveway or
Well,
what?
can you pull up that map again? Because it's my understanding that that gentleman that has the home behind us, I don't think he uses that driveway that was on that map. Yeah, the driveway kind of in the middle of the screen, I don't, that's to get to the Golden Gate, you know, where the water comes out. I think he accesses his property from a different spot. Yeah, I think that's his driveway coming down to Illinois from there.
Maybe so. I have seen traffic on that road, but maybe it is the irrigation company.
Well, and it could be owners of the property. I mean, we bought that like a year ago, but we don't use it a ton. I mean, certainly we'll have roads in there, and if he needs access, I mean, there'll be private roads, but we could grant that. We're not gonna lock somebody off of their property.
And it does look, if I'm not mistaken, I think this is part of that property.
Yeah, no, I think that he's
Right,
got
Rob?
plenty of right-of-way through a driveway there.
Yeah, so that'd be his frontage right there, or whoever owns that property, that would be their frontage.
Good.
Okay. Other questions?
Yeah,
Yes,
Mr. Mayor.
Councilor Stoddard.
Is it Mr. Minard?
Yeah.
Minard?
Minard, yeah.
With a T or a D on the end?
Huh?
Minor, M-I-N-E-R, or?
T at the end, minor.
T, okay,
Yeah.
gotcha, thank you. Regarding, Counselor McGee's question, you said you did dig some test wells below?
Yeah, there's
Or
some
test
test
holes
pits on
below
the property, yeah.
For seepage or whatever?
Yeah.
And you didn't find anything?
Oh, well, I mean, we didn't find any groundwater. I don't have them in front of me, but
Mhm.
do you have?
Nothing to be concerned about is what I'm asking.
No, we just did it so our engineers can calculate seepage beds and, you know, drainage and all that.
Okay, all
And
right,
I can't remember how deep but it wasn't concerning at all.
okay, thank you.
Other questions? Okay, very good, thank you so much. And I think, did you have a question for Rob? You wanted to answer that, or ask that now?
Thanks, Mr. Mayor, and Mr. McDonald. And I don't want to belabor this too much, because I'm complimentary to the developer. This is a really unique piece of land here. I'm sure most of us have driven by it before. The fact that you can put anything there is impressive to me. I've been by there a bunch, and so kudos to you guys for putting something there. I think it's great. Rob, based on the conversation so far, it sounds like this is owned by Golden Gate. Is that right? The canal?
The canal is, it's the Notice Canal.
Okay. And then, Rob,
Can I mention one thing about Golden Gate?
yeah, let me.
Because that's,
yeah,
oh, go ahead,
Yeah,
sorry.
let me finish and then,
Yeah, go ahead.
because I just want to follow up on what Rob said. So, Rob, this might put you in you may not be able to answer this, and that I'll just accept it, but do you know anything about what their inspection policies are, or if there's an inspection calendar that they abide by? Do you have any insight or information on that canal and how often it's inspected, or anything like that?
Mr. Mayor, Councilman McGee, I don't know the details of their operation and maintenance schedules. It is very common for an irrigation district to have a typical schedule, and I'm sure that this, because of the location of this notice canal, and because of the issues in the past, I'm sure that they are paying attention closely to it. And so I don't have any reason to believe that they are neglecting any of their maintenance responsibilities. And I don't have any reason to believe necessarily that it's gonna rupture again, but it's always a possibility.
Yep, thank you, Pat. Any other questions for staff at this time? Okay, very good. So that is all that signed up in favor, so we will move to those in opposition, and then you will get a chance, Mr. Minor, for rebuttal at the end on that and for any other additional questions. So, again, as you come up, please state your name and address, and you'll be allotted up to 5 minutes for your testimony. We'll begin with Nancy Curry, who's indicated that she wishes to. Okay, so Gerald? Okay, so Gerald, if you'll come forward, please state your name and address for the record, and then you'll have 5 minutes.
My name is Gerald Curry. I live at 918 North Illinois. We've lived there since '81. There's been some things bantered around here about the Golden Gate Canal. And since I've been there from '81, I know obviously more than you guys are aware of, but I don't know exactly specifics about inspections and that kind of stuff. I know when they come out in the spring, they do a preliminary inspection to see if they've had any trouble over the winter, like something settling or something like that. They don't necessarily find anything when they do that, though, until they put water in the canal and you've got head pressure. Last year, they found a major problem, and they turned the water on, and after a week, they shut it off, and we didn't get water again for 2 months because they spent all their time and money working on that particular problem. It cost them a great deal of money. I don't know exactly how much. So much so that when we finally got water, they had to let the ditch rider go because of lack of funds to pay. So they shut the water off early, like about 3 or 4 weeks. And over the years, there's been a number of times where they've had isolated problems here or there up and down that canal. And I think it was stated that there's not known about the water table here. Well, I've got my original purchase papers from the first person that bought my house. My house was built in '39. And at that time, it stated that it was in a 100-year floodplain. As far as the water table is concerned, like a year or two after we moved in, I planted several fruit trees in the back. And they flourished for about 3 years. And then we had a lot of rain in the spring, and the table rose high enough and long enough that it choked off the roots of those trees, and they all died. So the water table there, when you drill, may not be, anywhere close to where you think it is, but I know on certain occasions that water table is well up within 2 feet of the surface, because it killed those trees. Now, trying to think what else I can tell you about that, but maybe I should just read what I've got written here, and I can answer any questions you might have. Our many decades-old services infrastructures are going to be severely stressed if the proposed development on this property is approved. The city's sewer capacity will be affected. With this complex and Nogales First Avenue development, the city water volume and pressure will be greatly impeded. The city power grid will be strained, especially in the summer months. The storm drains will be hard-pressed to handle the additional runoff from the proposed complex's streets, added to the already high volume runoff coming down the hill from Canyon Hill. We have already had several instances of flooding on lower elevation properties from heavy rain runoff. And that does not include the incident where there was a breach in the canal. In addition, there will be possible flooding to established properties from unattended irrigation watering. Who does the watering? The owners of the HOA. I am assuming that they're gonna put a high-capacity, large pump in there if they're gonna be pumping that water out to irrigate their property by sprinklers. And that's gonna be a heavy drain on it, 'cause not that much flow comes down that canal anyway, by the time it gets down to where I am. Golden Gate is the irrigation canal in the city of Caldwell that I have on-demand irrigation water rights from at my address. We use a pump that requires sufficient volume and head pressure to operate properly. Because this development and the Nogales First Avenue development uses pressurized irrigation water, I believe there may be insufficient water available for my property, not to mention the properties further down the canal ditch. We already have this problem when Luby Park diverts the water for their purposes. Due to a major canal repair, we had a short water season this year, and it took all summer for my lawn to recover from the water shortage. With this complex install, the canal modifications outside of the watering season, so it doesn't shorten our season again this year. And that's pretty much all I got on that. I'm just addressing the canal issues. I know it's not owned or operated by the city, but this development's definitely gonna affect it. No question.
Yeah, very good. Thank you so much. Questions from council? Okay. Thank you so much. We appreciate your testimony.
Thank you.
And then Nancy, did you wish to testify as well? Okay.
My name is Nancy Curry. I live at 918 North Illinois. That's the third house down from this proposed complex on the right-hand side, the same side they're gonna propose to be on. In 1982, we chose to purchase our home in a quiet area of mostly seniors and have owned our home in North Illinois for over 40 years. I'd like to address traffic issues. It is already dangerous for residents trying to exit their driveway onto North Illinois. Since the Maverick gas station expanded to a truck stop, our street has constant heavy traffic and has now become a truck route. In addition, we have extensive traffic to and from Sacagawea School already. This proposed complex could potentially add an additional 140-plus vehicles to North Illinois. They propose 39 units with 3 vehicle parking spaces per unit, plus an additional 23 overflow spaces, which equals 140 vehicles. That's 140-plus vehicles added to the already very heavy traffic on the street. 140-plus vehicles added significantly increases the traffic noise level for the existing residents. If a traffic impact study was done, it would confirm this. Some other issues, multifamily developments, though he doesn't like to call it that. We all know that's what it is. Multifamily developments negatively affect existing homeowners' property values. Crime statistically increases with multifamily developments where there's a large number of people living in a small property area, which this would be. This infill planned unit development does not contribute a compatible design to the existing mostly one-story family homes in the neighborhood. The building type is a multifamily. The height is 3 stories, 38 feet. The bulk, it's a multiple huge buildings. And the site location. They are requesting 0 interior lot line setbacks to meet the density standards. We want our neighborhood to remain single-family homes only. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Are there any questions from council? Okay, thank you again. Appreciate that.
Thanks.
Next on the list, that signed up to testify is Mike, is it Spagnola?
That's right.
If you please come forward, and if you could state your name and address, and then you will have 5 minutes for your testimony.
We have a hip replacement, I'm not doing this.
So, we won't start your time till you get up here, so take it nice and slow. So again, just your name and address, and then.
Your Honor, council members, thank you for allowing me the time to speak. My name is Mike Spagnola. I live at 1716 Polk. I've been here since 1989. to expand on what this lady said about the traffic, now, from my house, I can see the interstate from east and west coming, on Centennial there. And it's a pretty good flow of semis coming off the interstate. Now, that Maverick's got the cheapest fuel in the state. Truckers know it. And I've seen them parked in that turn lane, both coming and going, 2, 3 deep, waiting for an open, spot at a pump. So it's become a truck route. Like the lady mentioned, the other cars coming out of that development, we put a lot of money into those sidewalks. And there's kids walking back and forth on them sidewalks year round, going to school, going to the park, going to Maverick. I've seen, what happens when drivers are distracted, some kind of a distraction in or on their vehicle, say a foggy morning, a kid's going to school, they're in a hurry to get to work. It's a disaster waiting to happen. Whatever benefit this will give to the city, property tax, maybe some sales tax, I don't think it's worth the health and safety of a child on that sidewalk. The roads are marked on that place, marked at 26 foot. So the average car width is about 5.5 foot. So if you get 2 cars parked on these streets in this development, it's about a 15, 14 foot single lane to get through there. Now, there's some talk about the school not wanting to put a bus stop in there because they can't get a bus in and out. They can't get a bus in and out. How are they going to get a fire truck in and out? Garbage trucks. This fellow here mentioned condition for HOA. Does that mean that it's set in stone that there will be HOAs? If not, what's to keep people from buying these units and subletting them? With no HOA, there's no pride in ownership. Within 2-3 years, it'll be an eyesore. Not like the lady had mentioned with the crime and such, but also the retaining wall along that canal. Is there going to be any kind of a wall to keep kids from falling into that canal? I know it's up the hill, but still, I've climbed up hills. I mean, kids are curious. So, I mean, as far as safety is concerned, it would be the big thing. Traffic is another. It's a dangerous situation. But as far as benefiting the city, I think it's only going to benefit Mr. Unger and his DBA. They probably got that. I mean, it's a 4.5 acre thin strip of land. They're going to cram all that massive humanity in there, and with all these cars and such, again, it's a disaster waiting to happen. Are they going to dig the side of that wall out, the side of that hill out? They're going to grade that hill out for to build these retaining walls of any kind. They're going to do any kind of a moving land and dirt around it to put that stuff in there. I think it's going to be a problem with that canal. I've only got one other thing to say. Years ago, when my children were young, we'd go down there on that same stretch of ground and fly kites, because it's got a pretty good updraft, and it provided some high entertainment for my kids. Several times when I was down there on that property goofing around, I found obsidian arrow points. I got 5 obsidian arrow points and 1 basalt arrow point, and then a couple of piles of obsidian chips, which would indicate a place where people, Native Americans, were habitating and making arrow points. So, I mean, I don't know if it's a consideration to make sure that there's not some kind of a site would be disturbed in there with all this digging and such, but I've got some pretty nice arrowheads I found down there. I don't know what else I've got. I'm just worried about the children. I've seen what happens, and people in a hurry to get to work. I mean, there's kids on that sidewalk year round. So, HOA, maybe this gentleman can answer what he mentioned as conditions for an HOA. Does that mean it's etched in stone there will be an HOA that's going to monitor the maintenance of the landscaping, trash? I don't know. Shoot, but again, if there's no HOA, there's no pride and ownership. If people aren't just renting them, it's going to be an eyesore in 2-3 years. I don't know. I don't think it's going to benefit the city to have this thing go through at all. So, but growth is beneficial for the city. It's very beneficial as long as it's responsible growth and it doesn't interfere or is compatible with the health and safety of the citizens. Thank you again for your time.
Thank you so much. Are there any questions from council? Okay, thank you so much. Appreciate you
Chief?
coming down.
Want to say anything? You want to yell at me again?
He's letting you off easy tonight, so it looks like, so.
What's that now? Well, thank you for the time,
Yeah,
folks.
yeah, thank you. Mr. Goodman signed up to testify. If you come
Mr. Mayor.
forward.
Just a
Oh, yeah.
question real quick. Do you want to answer the HOA question real quick so that that doesn't come up again?
That, or the applicant can touch on that in his rebuttal,
Okay.
so might be
'Cause-
more appropriate.
Well, he was nodding when they were asking about the HOA, just in case anybody wanted to reiterate that it was in place.
Yeah, so we'll just note that the applicant will discuss that in his rebuttal comment. Mr. Goodman, if you could please state your name and address, and then you'll have 5 minutes for your testimony.
Sure, thank you, Mayor. My name is Dan Goodman. I'm an attorney at White Peterson. We're located at 5700 East Franklin Road, Suite 200 in Nampa. I'm here today representing Dave Witt. You were discussing his property a little earlier. He's an affected neighbor living at 1000 North Illinois Avenue in Caldwell. We were in attendance at the Planning and Zoning Commission hearing on this PUD, and we had stated there, and my understanding is the commission, per our request, included in the conditions for approval, or at least the recommended conditions for approval that they sent on to you, the following 2 conditions, and these are the 2 conditions that really I'm speaking here today for. The first is that there be an installation of a fence and landscape buffer zone. I noticed that the buffer zone was already listed in the staff report. I didn't see the landscape fence, or the fence, excuse me. And perhaps I missed it. But I had received assurances from Bob Unger as well, along with the Planning and Zoning Hearing Commission hearing, that there would be a 6-foot-tall wood fence surrounding the PUD. My concern is specifically the portion of the perimeter of the PUD that abuts Dave Witt's property. We're particularly concerned about having that fence be built there to separate Dave Witt's property from the PUD. So that was one condition for approval that we had sought, and I had received indications that that would be included to you all. And specifically, that fence and buffer zone would also exist at the north perimeter of Witt's property. His property is on the southeast corner of the PUD. And that buffer zone and fence would also be built by the developer between Dave Witt's property and the street turnaround that's been designated for this PUD. So that's the first condition that I'm hoping will be a condition imposed by this council in the event that you approve the PUD. The other condition is specifically the reduction in height of the buildings proposed for lots 13, 15, and 16. Now, lots 13, 15, and 16 are all the lots that are closest to Dave Witt's property. And we'd like to see the maximum height of those buildings reduced to 25 feet. Now, as it stands, all of these buildings are to be up to 38 feet. And the Caldwell City Code requires, outside of a PUD situation as this or an infill situation like this, I can't remember which one it is, but the general provisions of the Caldwell City Code require a maximum of 25-foot heights if the building is built adjacent to a single-family home, which is what Dave Witt's property is. Now, while that ordinance does not necessarily expressly apply in this situation, you as mayor and council members have discretion to impose it anyway. I'll also remind the council that Caldwell's comprehensive plan specifically includes provisions with regard, or goals, I should say, with regard to maintaining open space, having a sense of place in Caldwell, as well as not diminishing unnecessarily sight lines of single-family homes. And so, you know, at the Planning and Zoning Commission, Bob Unger, when he was up here, had stated to the Planning and Zoning Commission that he thought that he would be able to, rather than modifying the the buildings on those lots, again, that's 13, 15, and 16, to contain less square footage and, be smaller in height that way. He had suggested digging into the ground, so that essentially the building, I guess, would stay the same, but that the height of those, roofs as compared to the ground level of Dave Witt's property would be no more than a difference of 25 feet. And so, again, it's my understanding that both Bob Unger and the Planning and Zoning Commission agreed to both of these conditions, and I'm simply here today to ask the council that in the event that you approve this PUD, that you include these two conditions, as part of your approval. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Rob, do you mind pulling up the preliminary plat so we can look at that? And again, just to kind of reiterate those two conditions, one was the fence, correct? And the
that's
other
right.
is the height. Is that
Right.
the two main issues? So I was just wondering if the fence, because I looked and I didn't see it specifically, but I know oftentimes it may be shown on the preliminary plat and they have to comply with that. So that's why I was just curious if maybe it showed.
Yeah, and perhaps that is
Okay.
how it's phrased in the staff report. I took a quick glance at that, and I saw that it was, if I remember correctly, one of the conditions was that it would comply with the preliminary plat. So Dave Witt's property is up at the top right of that image. There's a street turnaround adjacent to his property, and that's one of the places where we're hoping to have this buffer zone and, most importantly, a fence, as well as the other portion right there. Exactly.
Okay. I don't see any call-outs for a fence on that, so perhaps the applicant, when he comes up, he can address those two things. Any questions from council for Mr. Goodman? Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Okay, so that is all that is signed up to testify in opposition to this. Is there anyone else? I don't see you had signed up but indicated not to testify, correct? Okay. So with that, then we'll go back to our applicant for rebuttal. And you'll get 5 minutes and then stand for questions following that. So, Mr. Minor, if you don't mind, in setting your name for the record, and then your rebuttal, and then if you could address some of those questions that came up, that'd be great.
You bet. Ryan Miner. I mean, just to clarify, Bob Unger, he's my planner. He's been doing this the whole time, so he might know more about what was done at planning and zoning. I wasn't there. I am the owner of the property, so I can speak to a lot of this. I think our landscape plan might have it. I have no issues with putting a fence on that upper corner. No fence, no problem with that at all. And if something came up during planning and zoning that they talked about, I'm not sure about the height restriction. A gentleman brought up water table. I mean, I just pulled up, we have a year's worth of groundwater monitoring, and there's 2 test pits that we've been tracking every month, and they go from 9.5 feet to about 10.5 feet. So, that's where where you hit groundwater. So I don't think we have a massive issue there. Obviously, it's a lot of questions about an HOA. I mean, we will have an HOA, per city. Before we, you have any final plat, we'll have CC&Rs. And this development's not, in my mind, multifamily because it is single family, it's attached townhomes, and we'll be selling these and building these mostly for affordable product where first-time home buyers and workforce, can have a place that they own. So I don't really see it as a big rental. We do have, 8.5, I think he said, per acre as opposed to what the max allows. We have a ton of open space that we are trying to provide for, mostly because this property allows for and doesn't allow for a lot of building. So we've, turned a lot of it into open space. As far as water, our engineers haven't designed any sort of, pump system or irrigation system. So I don't know what that's going to look like, but we don't have a lot of landscaping. I don't know if it's worth pulling up the landscape plan, but there's not a lot of irrigation needed here. But I also don't know what the flow is either. So I hope, does that answer the question hopefully that answers the question as far as the HOA goes. And Golden Gate, we have met with them. We will be relocating the canal, and they didn't seem to have any issues with that. As long as it goes from there to the end of the property.
And I'm guessing it's flood irrigated now, and it's gonna go to pressurized
Correct.
irrigation, is that
Yeah.
sound correct? Okay. Very good. Okay, anything else?
That's all I can think of. Bob usually does this, I'm filling in, so I'm
Very
just
good.
winging it.
Very good. You're doing a good job. So, any questions from council? Yes, Councilor Allgood.
So you heard the gentleman before you talk about the height of the buildings next to Mr. Witt's property. Have you guys worked that out? Is there an agreement of some kind?
You know, he's had his discussions with Bob, and Bob's brought it up to me. If there was some resolution at planning that we could keep the 3-story and still stay within that height restriction, then, you know, I would have to look at what happened at planning to see. But,
You don't have any firsthand knowledge of that?
no. But I mean, I'm telling you right now, I have no issues with a fence over there, and I think we'll be doing quite a bit of fencing with regards to where the other homes are and the boundary of our property.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, very good.
All right,
Thank you so
thanks.
much. Appreciate it. Are you able to pull up the landscape plan? I have it here, but it's very vague, so I can't look and see, I can't see a fence being shown on it, but it's very washed out, so there may be one there and I'm just not seeing it, so.
Mayor and council, from our quick review of the same plan that you're looking at, we don't see a fence, so if you would like to add a condition to have fencing.
Okay, very good. Excellent, okay, very good. And that's all that is signed up to testify in this matter, so I would stand for a motion to close the public testimony portion of this hearing.
So moved.
And a second? So we have a motion from Councilor Stoddard and a second from Councilor Williams to close the public testimony portion of this hearing. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion passes. Good, so that turns it, over to discussion of the council. Again, you're open for any questions of staff at this time. If you feel appropriate for approval, also discussing any of these conditions that were mentioned, things of that nature. So the time is yours for discussion and any questions for staff.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, Councilor McGee.
I love asking strange questions to our staff. So, Mr. Hilty, and if we were to, in our motion, Mr. Hilty, if we were able to put a qualification on this motion that the canal be inspected by the Notice Canal Company, or we refer to the last inspection of the canal, or something that indicates that the canal was inspected pre-construction. Now, I know we have a wide latitude in these motions to do a lot of different things. And so I'm trying to, what I'm trying to do here is to, at least for me, and I can't speak for everyone on the council, but to give a little bit of weight to making sure that is indeed safe. We have heard tonight a couple of times about some breakage and some flooding, and because that canal is located above and not next to, it becomes even more evident, I think, that there is potential issue there. I think, personally, I think this is a good project. I really do. I'm a little bit concerned about us approving this and then next year there's an accident, right? And so, can you help guide me, I guess, if I'm going to make a motion, or even other members of the council, on what that would look like or what that would sound like, or even if that's appropriate?
Councilor McGee, it is an unusual request. We routinely rely on other special purpose districts and other units of government to take care of their own infrastructure, whether it's highway districts, there's bridges, culverts, other canals. So we haven't really asked, we haven't really put the onus on a developer to sort of double check that. That said, you do have some pretty wide latitude in approving a planned unit development. I think that's true. The best I can come up with, I guess, off the cuff is, that you could require as a condition of approval that, that your staff communicate with, the irrigation district, and maybe even do a site inspection, do something that would, at least review that for, I guess, any obvious problems. assuming that those don't exist, the developer would be free to move forward, in the opinion of your engineer. On the other hand, if there is an identified problem, that we would have to figure out, probably come back and figure out what that is. I did hear, the owner of the project say that, they do have access to geotech and could do their own looking at it. The difficulty is in quantifying what is found relative to meeting a condition of approval. I think that's where we're gonna have a difficult time.
I know that's an unusual one, and it's a tough one. I think everybody probably understands what I'm getting at. I'm just trying to thread the needle here and find a way forward.
Mr. Mayor, Councilman McGee, another option would be maybe that the applicant, can solicit a letter from the irrigation district, maybe laying out their, maintenance operations or when it's been maintained or when the last time was or when their future plans are, so that we have a letter that just indicates what their operations are.
Good. Councilor Williams?
Mr. Mayor, thank you. I'm want to agree with Mr. McGee on the uniqueness of this property and the proposed development here. Something that I think we really need to keep in mind, especially with what we're calling and what is called here an infill property, is these are prime locations for us to consider workforce housing. It's one of the things that Ms. Collins and I have even been discussing recently that doesn't get a lot of attention and probably needs to get more attention. While we frequently are talking about subsidized housing, we're missing a market of housing that's workforce, where school teachers, police officers, and healthcare workers can afford to live in our city that make too much to qualify for what is typically known as subsidized housing, but don't make enough to buy something in the Highlight Estates or wherever you choose to sell them a home, Council Register. And so there's going to be, I think, more of these coming before us in the coming days. And there's also a lot of concern for whose backyards we're building these in. And those are the challenge. Those are very difficult. And admittedly, we have to take all things into consideration. But I'm really impressed with this development, and especially with the extra amount of open space that they're affording, that they're not overbuilding this property, but they're thinking ahead. And so there's a lot going on here that I'm really in favor of and would like you to consider as you think through the possibility of this project.
Thanks so much. Other comments?
Mr.
Yes,
Mayor.
Councilor Register, go ahead.
I agree with both, Councilor Williams and Councilor McGee. My question, I guess, is, my biggest concern at this point is not having, the applicant here to get some questions answered that we're asking. But is there anything that, points to the safety like we were talking about, or can we delay it until we have some kind of safety report from the canal and what their envision is of the water burden?
So, yeah, you always have the ability, if you want to continue. I mean, it's always nice to get through things when you can, because the people that are here and attending, kind of respecting their time. But if there's items you feel are of that importance to know before, then yeah, you always have that ability to continue that item if you feel that it warrants to get that additional information or whatever it may be.
In this case, for me, it's the safety issue and the water burden. So if that could be taken away, then it would be easier to approve, in my opinion. If there's going to be a safety issue, I think we should just get that answer first.
Yeah, and the other option, and again, this is council's purview and your decision on it, is you could put a condition in there stating that they have to provide a letter stating that, and then it puts the onus on them. And if they're not able to get it, then they can't meet that condition, and then it's dead in the water, and then that doesn't require it to come back. So that's well, yeah, maybe that's the wrong pun to use in this time, but so that is a way that you could do it if you felt that was the way you wanted to go.
Then to whoever ends up making the motion, that I would feel better if we had some kind of safety recommendation and the burden on the water so that these folks aren't without water again.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, Council Williams.
I think it's important for us to recognize what, council has already stated too, that infrastructure has their own responsibilities to maintain, their services. And I don't know, Mr. McDonald, you can correct me, and I know you will, but the fact that an engineer can go and observe something and examine it and say it's reliable doesn't preclude something unseen happening in another month or in 6 months or next year.
Yeah.
And so I think if we are that concerned about it, just simply dealing with it tonight and saying at least we check with the canal district and check with their maintenance procedures and records to assure us that they're doing their due diligence and what would be proper canal maintenance, that's the best we can hope for. The developer understands he's building this on an infill property that sits underneath a canal. We live in a community full of canals, and even the open canal questions are ongoing concerns, and every year we have accidents, unfortunately. I don't think we did last year. But these are terrible things that happen with canals. We never want them, we never, we dread them, but we live in a community with canals, so we have to just trust that those entities are continuing to operate in a way that is safe and current with industry standards.
Yes, Councilor Allgood.
Question for Alex. Thank you. The gentleman mentioned the height stipulation on the properties, adjoining the residential property. Is there anything in this that restricts the height on these lower than 38 feet?
Mayor and council, for that, there is the stipulation that when building next to residential that is 25 foot, you are supposed to stay in 25 foot unless you have a special use permit or PUD. So with this PUD, they are asking for exemption from that height requirement.
So the 3 lots that were mentioned, he could build to 38 feet based on what we've got in front of us tonight.
Correct, with your approval.
Thank you.
Yes, Councilor Stoddard.
You know, I think as many problems as the Golden Gate folks have had, I still have a hang up with them yet, because they, for years I've heard that how inadequate that they service their customers there. Secondly, relative to what, Councilor Williams said, I don't think he would like a 2 or 3 story, fourplex renting in his backyard. And I've talked to, Ms. Collins about this too, that anytime we have a situation like that, I think we have to discuss with the developer that duplexes are in order, so we don't have those type of buildings in everybody's backyard. And we try to shoot for that. It might only be maybe 3 or 4 duplexes, single-story duplexes, instead of a 2 or 3 story fourplex. So those are the 2 items I have hang-ups on, especially the irrigation deal, and then more than a 1-story building in somebody's backyard. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate those comments. Any other discussions or?
Mayor, I might try a motion just to see if we get anywhere here. I move that the city council approve the proposed plan unit development, and I'll get those numbers. I just want to make sure I got that first language. I'll read that off, Mayor. PUD 22-000006 / SUB 22-000034, and preliminary plat located on parcel R34916000000, R34917000000, and finally R349180000, with, coach me on this if you need to, Mark, with the following conditions. 1, that the developer solicit a letter of safety schedule of this canal from the Notice Canal Company. 2, that the developer include the fencing that has been discussed at tonight's city council meeting. And three, I need to make sure that I get this measurement right, so someone can correct me if I'm wrong. That the frontage adjacent to the Witt property be limited to 25 feet in height.
And then also the rest of the conditions is outlined by staff.
Thank
On
you,
that,
Mayor.
correct?
Thank you, Mayor. And the rest of the conditions is outlined by staff. That's correct.
Perfect.
Second.
Okay, so all sound good, Mr. Hilty?
As I think just for clarification purposes on what we're getting, or what we're asking him to get, that it would just be something that outlines their maintenance schedule? Is that what you're looking for?
That's right. Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Mr. Hilty. You made a good point about the fact that, we have to trust these other entities maintaining their property. For example, if we're building something next to ITD and we have a concern about the traffic, well, we assume that ITD knows what they're doing and they're maintaining it safely. So that's a good point. But I think for me to give me some comfort, and I think some others, just having that letter that talks about the safety schedule, right? And
Schedule, and
yes.
including, I assume, inspections and.
That's right.
Okay.
That's right. Yeah, thank you for clarifying that.
Perfect, excellent. So we have a motion from Counselor McGee and a second from Counselor Williams, correct? On
Mayor
that.
and council, can we get a clarification, as staff? You did say the height limitation along Dave Witt's parcel. There's also the parcel to the south of Dave Witt's parcel that also has, pull up the, there it doesn't do anything. Can I take your mouse?
That's Dave Witt's right there.
So,
So he's, basically about 13, and there was a few
there,
other lots that had been mentioned. What were those numbers? 13, 15, and 16.
there are also, these ones are adjacent to a residential parcel as well. So we wanted to see clarification if you meant all of these along the residential parcel or just the ones along Dave Witt's parcel?
Yeah, that's a great question.
Did we receive any, I don't think these people were here to testify. Did we receive anything from them in regards to?
Staff did not.
Okay.
Well, then I'm just going to amend that motion if the seconder will agree to the Witt property and then lots 13, 15, and 16. I believe those were the ones that were discussed. Did I get that right?
Correct.
Is that amenable? Yes, it is. Okay. So we have an amended motion from Counselor McGee, and the seconder agreed to those amendments, which was Counselor Williams. Again, so this is for approval with the conditions as outlined by staff, with the addition of the requirement for the fence to be installed abutting the Witt property, and then also a height limitation of 25 feet for parcels 13, 15, and 16, as shown on the preliminary plat that's submitted with the application. So any discussion on that motion?
Just, Mr. Mayor, just for clarification, Mr. Hilty, would that letter guarantee that these other folks that, are lacking water right now would have it on their property?
No, Counselor Stoddard, I don't think that they would
Okay.
provide that.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions or discussion? Okay, very good. Madam Clerk, if you would please, and then also the condition in there about what, the, letter from, or the, kind of the Golden Gate, or not Golden Gate, Black Canyon, whoever controls that, their maintenance schedule, things of that nature as well. Okay. Madam Clerk, if you please call the roll.
McGee,
Yes.
Allgood,
Yes.
Williams,
Yes.
Register,
No.
Doty,
Yes.
Stoddard.
No. So that motion does pass, 4 in favor and 2 opposed. So that does approve the request for the plan unit development and the subdivision, for Meadowdale, Investments LLC. Stand for motion to close this public hearing item.
So moved.
In a second?
Second.
So a motion from Counselor Stoddard and a second from Counselor Doty to close this public hearing item. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion passes. So that moves us down to action item number 4. This is to consider acceptance of the finance report. Are you doing that tonight, Counselor Register?
Can. can,
Perfect.
yeah, let me get to it. Here we go. Let's see, I move that accounts payable in the amount of $3,506.56 represented by check numbers 168652 through 168902, and payroll for the amount of $573.209.17 represented by check numbers 38405 through 38480, and direct deposits be accepted, payments approved, and vouchers filed in the office of the city clerk.
Yeah. So we have a motion from Councilor Register. Do we have a second? Second from Councilor Williams for approval of the finance report as presented. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion passes. And that moves us on to council reports. Councilor Register.
I don't have anything too exciting. You missed my report last week on being a fireman, so you'll have to go back and watch it on YouTube. I don't have anything. I know there was some discussion, a lot of discussion online about the pool, and so I had asked, you were going to talk about it in your comments so that we could have an update and see where we kind of stand with that and see if we can do anything at all for the people that want the pool fixed.
And yes, we definitely will. I do have some items for that to discuss, so very good. Anything else?
No.
Okay, Councilor Stoddick.
Mr. Mayor, I attended the Valley Rapid Transit meeting, this past Monday in Meridian. And as most of you know, Mrs. Clegg is now the CEO of that particular organization. There are a lot of things that are coming down the pike on this, especially how communities are gonna share in the cost of rapid transit. And, you know, there was several studies put on in 2019 about how much taxpayers really had to pay. And I hope to transfer that information when the time comes to that committee. And also, Sabrina Mitchell was elected to the executive board also, so that was all approved by everybody too, so that's all I have.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Councilor Doty.
I would just like to note that Jerry Summers is in our audience today, right? And did your dissertation yesterday? And we have to call him Dr. Jerry Summers now, so congratulations on that.
Congratulations.
Well deserved.
Very good. Excellent. Thank you so much. Councilor Williams.
Nothing tonight.
Councilor Allgood.
I know we've had quite a change in staff in planning and zoning, but I really don't wanna, we need a new comprehensive plan. We need that update. I just wanna make sure that does not fall off our radar as we go forward, that our comprehensive plan is updated.
Bringing that up. I know we've had some discussions recently on that and on the map as well. So it is definitely there, but we appreciate you making sure that stays on the forefront. So.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Councilor McGee. Okay, do you have those? Okay, so you are getting, so we'll start with the swimming pool, on that. So what this is, and I appreciate, Councilor Doty kind of giving this suggestion to have something for all of you that you have in regards to where we've been, where we're at, and maybe where we're going, so you all have the same information, because I know it's difficult sometimes if residents are calling, Councilor Register, and then they're calling Councilor Williams, and making sure that you all have that same information. So, especially where a lot of you came in kind of in the middle of this pool, well, all of us really came in the middle of this pool, dilemma that we have. So this kind of talks about where we're at, kind of what's happened, some of the bids, the cost of where we're at right now, the reasoning on that. So that's for your reading for the week. So kind of where we're at right now is we had, when the pool got up to, I think the final total potential cost was $12 million after starting out at about $3 million. Felt that was inappropriate for, as a council to spend that much money, taxpayer dollars. And if it was going to be that much, do we need to go to a bond? What do we need to do? Reevaluate, wait for prices to come down. And so we had looked at just, rehabilitating the existing pool. Initial thought was that was going to be around $1.8, $1.9 million, and it came in at just over $4 million. And so that was just to, again, rehabilitate a 60-year-old pool. And so there was concern on that as well for that cost and that amount. I know there's some people that have reached out and said, hey, I can build it for a lot cheaper. And we're always willing to listen on that, but, this isn't your backyard private pool, it's a public pool, so there's a lot more requirements, things like that that go into the cost, and it's not just the pool itself, but also, the lockers and things like that need updated. So this will provide you, we appreciate, Julie McCoy and also Rob, and I'm sure Raylyn and Rochelle, part of that too, provide this information for you. So I have had some discussion as well with, the YMCA. They reached out and came and talked to me, and I wanted to get a little bit of feedback from council. There's some pros and cons, on that, and so they talked about, allowing Caldwell residents to utilize the YMCA pool while we're down and out and without a pool. Obviously that costs them money to run that pool. It's not a money-making endeavor for them. It wasn't for us. So we were, if I remember right, our typical, on an average year, non-COVID, we always lost money on the pool. Around $75,000, I think is a fair estimate, is what we paid to have the Caldwell pool up and running on that. So I had some very brief discussions with YMCA, received a letter from them, and kind of what they would want for us. So if they were to do that, they would, right now, YMCA fees. So if you went there and wanted to do a day pass to go swimming as a youth, it would cost you $6.75. As an adult, it's $13.25. The city pool, if you went there as a youth for a day pass, is $5, and as an adult is $7.50. So for a youth, it's not much difference. It's about $1.75. As an adult, it's about a $5.50 difference between those two. So residents could go and do that right now. If they wanted to go and use the Y pool, they could go and do that and pay that fee rather than obviously the fee that we have. The Y's proposal is that they would offer the city rate, to city residents to utilize the swimming pool, to utilize the Y facility for that day, but they would ask the city, and the initial number they threw out was $250,000, that they would want the city to pay them to augment some of the offset of the fees on that. And that does give me a little bit concerned, because it's almost like, well, it's really not, especially for youth, it's not too much of a difference. Adults it is, I get that, but it's mostly kids that use the pool. There are some adults, so is it worth paying? Now, obviously, we wouldn't be losing the $75,000, but now you're paying $250,000. So obviously, that's a big difference on that. So just, is that worth it? Is it trying to negotiate with the Y to bring that number down, or just not even worry about it? So just maybe some thoughts and discussion direction of what do you all think? Yeah,
Mr. Mayor, quick question. That $250,000, would that just be for the summer months, like May through August, or could we get them to extend that a little bit, or do you have a time period?
Yeah, I think we could. I think that could be for the entire year, if I remember right. So, and I can look into that too, because actually I hadn't thought about for the entire on that, but that was my understanding, so I can confirm that, because that would make that a lot more palpable on that. So that's a great question. Other thoughts or questions from Councilor Doty?
So $250,000 is quite a bit of money, and I think if we're going to save or go into the direction of a pool, whether that's refurbish the old one or build a $12 million one, that's a lot of funds leaving and going out the door. That's not going towards fixing our issue. Some of the comments I received were to bond for the pool, just to see where the community's at, if they're willing to support a new pool or not. Same comments that you mentioned. Most people thought they could do it cheaper, but there's a lot of requirements for that. So some people came along and tried to help with the education on building a public pool versus a home pool. But I wouldn't be opposed to trying to see what a bond would do as well, and see where our community stands on that as a whole. Yeah. So, because if you're paying $250,000, it's taxpayer money. So why not let them have a say as to whether or not they'd like to bond for it? So that's just my thoughts.
Yeah, no, thank you. Councilor Stoddard.
I would definitely agree with, Councilman Doty on that. The argument we get right now is taxpayers are paying taxes on that anyhow, and they're not getting the service. And, the Y's offer there, to me, that's not really being community-minded either, that much money. So, I think, leave it up to the taxpayers. I think we ought to issue a bond on it once we get that far. Thank you.
Other thought, and so to clarify too, so that $75,000 loss is when it's in operation. So right now, obviously we're not hiring lifeguards, things of that nature. So these last couple of years, we haven't had any really lost on it. So, but when it's open and in operation, that's kind of the typical, it seems like on that, so.
I have two questions.
Yes, Councilor Register.
If we had all the money right now, how long would it take to build the pool of our dreams?
Oh, Rob can help. I'm gonna guess at least a year and a half with the way things are and trying to get items in.
So if we were rehabbing the existing pool, we already have a set of plans completed. So that could be a year possibly. If we wanted to do the $12 million master plan, you're probably looking at 2 years.
So even if we bond it, we're probably out next year again, next summer?
Yep, most likely. Well, pretty much definitely, unless we do just the remodel, then it.
I'm guessing it's one or the other, right? You wouldn't rehab it and then remodel it later.
I can jump on that. So kind of where we kind of landed was, so right now with the pool, is it's open about half the time because you have swimming lessons that occur. So when swimming lessons are there, nobody else can use the pool. And then also renting the pool. So you can rent the pool in the evenings, and so it's closed for everybody else. So as we went through this, the thought was kind of a two-phase part of, doing the rehab on the existing pool and then looking at a phase 2 sometime down the line. That's when we thought we could rehab it for the 1.8, 1.9, and then down the line doing, the grand, plan of the slides and the lazy river and the kids splash zone as kind of a separate area. Because then you could have one section would always be open. So you could do the swimming lessons, the private rental on the existing pool that we could remodel, and then that would still leave kind of the fun play area pool with the slides open all the time. So you could get more use out of it rather than having to shut it down for those lessons and other things.
So how old are the bids that we have on it?
Rob, on that?
The bid we received to rehab the existing pool came in at just under $4 million, and that is probably 8 months, maybe, old. And then the older bid for the full expansion that we were looking to do before that is probably, I don't know that, I'm trying to remember if we actually got a bid or if that was just that was a bid through CMGC, and that was probably just over a year. That was the December of 2021.
Okay.
Yep.
So we would probably need new bids anyway if we were gonna take it to a bond, and then if all these people that wanna come forward and take a look at it would be afforded the opportunity at that point.
Yeah, definitely, for sure on that. And I realize it is going to be, regardless, it's going to be a year or so out, and with the bond, it could be a couple years. But the nice thing is, if it, say it does go to a bond, the people kind of know, kind of like what Councilor Doty said, then they get to decide how they want, because that's a big chunk of change. That's, if you were to do that, that's 10% of our entire budget for the year. So it gives them kind of a chance to say yay or nay, and then kind of maybe it comes in at 60%, so it doesn't hit that 2/3, but you can see, more than half the people want it. Now which direction do we go? Or maybe it comes in, I don't know, but.
But is the projection, like if we do the $12 million deal eventually one day and we have all the bells and whistles, that we're still gonna be losing money on it?
And I'm not sure, I don't think we've done a detailed economic analysis on it to see what, because obviously that's gonna draw more people, to the pool. You could probably charge more on the pool as well if you have those extra amenities on that. It wouldn't be a Roaring Springs, but kind of a step down, if people don't want to go and spend that much money and it's closer. So I think you would see an uptick in the use of the pool, especially if you could have both areas utilized at the same time, where maybe you could, I don't know if the pool would ever be a money-making deal, but potential of perhaps breaking even in regards to that, so.
Mr. Mayor, I have a question on
Yeah.
the bidding process. Are there restrictions on the bidding process? Can any company bid on it, or do they have to be licensed through the feds or the state, or how's that work?
It has to be a company that's licensed. They have to have a public works license to be able to do the work, and they have to meet the qualifications that are in the bid documents.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, Councilor Allgood.
Rob, you and I have discussed this before. I think we all have. I really struggle with spending millions of dollars on a pool that's open 3 months a year. Using geothermal and extending our season so that we get more use out of it, is that viable at all?
Councilman Allgood, it is viable. We are still in the process of abandoning the existing geothermal well, which has been ruptured and it's leaking out through the ground all over the place. And so the process is to abandon that. And then we had, scheduled tentatively to re-drill a geothermal well in that area. And if the capacity, the heat, thermal capacity is great enough, then it could very well service a pool and potentially some buildings in the nearby, for heat and for other, energy, saving needs. So it's a possibility. We just don't know at this point. Without drilling a test well, we're not gonna know exactly what that potential is.
I think it might make a difference to people considering a bond if they had, some longer season, warm water in the winter kind of situation.
The guy that used to come here about the pool, and he would talk about how the ladies were always asking him about, is that what he's talking about? The geothermal?
Is it?
Like, it was like making it like a hot springs.
Mhm.
Okay, so
Yep.
same type of idea?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it would be better to be year-round if we could.
Okay. Yes, Councilor Williams.
Just really briefly, we don't even know that everybody that would use the outdoor pool would even be interested in the YMCA, so just tell them thank you very much, but, I'd pass.
I was actually gonna point that out too. Some of the comments were that people don't want an indoor pool. They want their outdoor Caldwell pool that they've always had. Oh, and that was gonna be my other question then. Can you just confirm why the pool's not working? Because there was a lot of people that didn't know.
Very good. And Rob, you can help me on this as well. So, kind of two reasons, if I'm not mistaken. One, there's a pretty major leak in the pool, and Rob could probably detail the number of, hundreds of thousands of gallons, leaking out of there. And then also, electrical issues with the, bonding, if I'm not mistaken, on the ground, and the current on that.
Correct. Mr. Mayor, the reason the pool was shut down was because, it had an electrical inspection, and the inspection failed. All of the equipment on the pool deck, all the way around, is supposed to be bonded, connected electrically through wiring to make sure that nothing is, to make sure there's no energy difference potential, between, appurtenances where someone may get shocked. And so that had completely failed. And I don't know when the last time that was checked. I don't know how long it's been. And so that was a big concern, and that closed the pool. The other issue that we have been having was the pool was constantly refilling because it was leaking so much water under the deep end, where there were some old cracks a long time ago from when the pool had floated from the groundwater when it was empty. And so, the only way to fix that is to basically open up the entire deep end and go down and redo all the pipe work. So it's a pretty significant repair that has to happen. Both of those items plus, all new concrete around the pool, and then redoing the gutters all the way around the pool. That was all part of the rehab, just under $4 million scope of work that we were proposing to beautify that pool.
So we're looking at $4 million to rehab and $12 million to upgrade, or the $12 million includes the rehab?
Yeah, and that, like I said, those numbers are 8 to 15 months old, so.
Yeah, but just out of curiosity, is it $4 million to rehab and $12 million to upgrade, or is it
Correct.
$12 million total to rehab and upgrade?
Yeah, and so I will just mention the 12 million, that number could change, but that number was established, a year and a half ago when the layout did not include rehabbing the existing pool. It was a complete demolish of the entire site, and it was building a larger pool, with a lazy river and then a smaller, kiddie pool, and some water features. That was the 12 million. We went back, and the 4 million was rehabbing the existing pool and a new mechanical room, and then the improvements that I had just mentioned. If we went and did the existing rehab and then did a phase 2, then you'd still be probably in the 12 to 15 million. I mean,
On top of
who
the
knows?
rehab cost.
I think that would include the rehab cost. But it's hard to say where it would land without even having a site plan or a design.
Okay, very good. So, yeah, so, like I said, there's some good information. Sounds like we'll do some research to kind of see where these numbers are at, and maybe look towards, putting it to the voice of the people, and kind of see what they want, how they want us to do this, and if they want to go that direction. So we'll kind of do some research on that, and kind of maybe do some economic studies too on it, like what do we think we'd be making if we go with all those, and how many people will be coming out, and I'll talk to the Y also and kind of let them know. that we appreciate the offer, but probably not at this time.
Quick question, how
Yeah.
long before, if we authorized it, how long would it take before that would get on the ballot?
That's a good question. We'd want to sit down and kind of, evaluate that, because we'd want time to prepare for it. Obviously, we don't want to just throw it out there and see what sticks to the wall, like my spaghetti noodles. We want to do some research and then also education to the people to tell them this is what's being proposed and this is why, and this is the cost and this is why. Like you said, a lot of that kind of was brought up earlier. A lot of people, I can throw some plaster on there and do this or that. It's going to be, $500,000, but then you don't realize we need the public works license. You got to have this, got to have the bonding. That all starts to really add into it. So, this year maybe pushing it, to be honest, even to do the bond, just because we'd want to do it right. But we can look into that too and get some information for you and kind of give you some timelines on that. Okay. Very good, and that's really all that I had, was just those items, and so appreciate you bringing that up, and we know it's an important thing for the city, and it's an important tool to have, I think, for the city, even though it's not a money generator. Even if we do lose a little money, it's a great amenity to provide for our citizens, so on that. But that is all the comments that I had, so with that, I'd stand for a motion.
Mayor,
Yes.
before I make that motion, can we wish our well wishes to Norm Geyer?
Yes.
And that he get well quickly, and that we all help Debbie get out of here so she can get home to him quickly. And with that, I move to close.
Good. If you have a motion to adjourn in a second, all those in favor?
Aye.
That motion passes. We stand adjourned.